So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome from Mark and I to today's webinar, looking at the IACC Global Sustainability Programme called IACC Green Star. For those who don't know me, I'm Kate Bacon. I work with Mark Cooper based out of the UK, and I'll be your key liaison for the Green Star certification if you've got any queries moving along the way. Just before we start, the usual housekeeping for those who haven't joined before. You will notice that we put you all on mute. But we do encourage you to use the chat box at the bottom of your screens for any questions. We will be taking questions throughout the session, and we do have a Q&A allocated at the end. The session, as always, is recorded, so I will forward the recording to you all after the session, and along with all our webinars, it is available on the IACC YouTube channel and the IACC webinar on demand page. So before I hand over to Mark, let me just run through sort of the agenda for today's call. We're going to kick off looking at the importance of social responsibility and the environment for our industry. We're going to have a look at the history, really, of IACC Green Star and the certification, and really where we are today with the new initiative. And then Mark's going to take us through a deeper dive into some of the criteria of the certification as you go through it. And we've got some good examples of members and how they use their Green Star accreditation. And then the most important bit, we're going to move on how you go about achieving your Green Star certification. And then we're going to finish up with some Q&A, which hopefully will take us to about quarter to the hour, as long as we run on time. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to IACC CEO Mark Cooper, who's going to take us through the first part of the agenda. Thanks, Mark.
Kate, that's great. And it's fantastic to see everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us for our first Green Star webinar that we're hosting in 2024. And as you'll learn from Kate, hot off the press, a brand new set of certifications. Now, I've just returned back from MPI's European Congress in the beautiful city of Luxembourg this week, and I had the pleasure of sharing a session with meeting professionals throughout actually Europe and the US in regards to the importance of social responsibility, the environment, and really just the challenges that they come up against as meeting professionals. I'll take one comment that I got from one of the wonderful meeting professionals during the session, actually from Helms Briscoe in the US. And one of the points that they made was that even though they have a great appetite to find and evaluate venues through a social and environmental lens, they find it really hit and miss in terms of the venue's ability to be able to demonstrate what it is they do in these areas and the credentials that they have. So this is 100% fueled me to give you every inch of encouragement that I can, that this is really important, not only for the planet, for our industry, but also our buyers out there. And so for us as venues, we have the chance to be able to do that. Kate will be referring throughout this session, as I will be, to the IACC Better Tomorrow initiative. And really all that is it's the umbrella, it's the brand that all of our social responsibility as it relates to people, planet, profit, the environment, will fall under that banner. But do take a look at the IACC Better Tomorrow initiative. Aside from Green Star, there's so much going on in there that you can use. So let's look at where we are today in regards to the importance of social responsibility and the environment. Now, we all know at home this is important to us as humans, as individuals, family, friends, it plays a part. And, if ever there was any doubt when we look at the statistics out there, we have just in the last 18 months tipped the scale globally in terms of going over the halfway mark in terms of consumers believing their individual food and beverage choices impact the environment. Now, some of us may look at that and go, well, that's still really quite low. But when we take this as a worldwide figure, it is absolutely heading in the right direction. And we know that by the time we get past 50%, it accelerates up. But the really important percentage that I wanted to share with everyone today is not the 52%, it's the 67%. Of those who get it, that our individual choices impact the environment, 67% of those say that it drives their purchasing decisions. And for everybody that I talk to in the industry, whether it's on the attendee side of the business or the meeting professional side of it, they say that there is absolutely no separation from their beliefs in terms of wanting to, drive their purchasing decisions related to the environment, but also the decisions that they make related to the events that they go to, how they get there, the choices that they make while they're at the venue, and the environments that they're in. So it really is an important element, and everybody's radar is on. Now, we are venue operators, and many of the names I recognize as being, in this industry for some years now. You understand the good, the bad, the ugly. And, we have been an event industry, or we have been an industry in the past that things like waste and inefficiency has been really visible to what we do. If we need a figure out there, in terms of food and beverage, it is that, edible food that is intended for human consumption, 33% globally is never eaten. It just is thrown away. And, whether you're in the United States or in Europe, whether it's 40% or 20%, it's still not good enough. So if we don't want to be seen as the industry like the tobacco industry in the 1980s, which didn't have a good name at all, then we really do need to play our part, and we need to play our part now. And that's what today and Green Star is all about. Now, the other slide that I wanted to share with you, and there is a QR code here for you. So if you're interested to go through to the links on these pages where you see a QR code, just put your camera up on your smartphone, and you should be able to click on that and be able to go through to the URL. But it's one thing to talk about IACC Green Star, but also where does your venue sit today related to the next venue, the venue that you're always competing with. And Cornell University, although in the US, has a global database of measures of carbon footprint, the average amount, what's low, what's high, what's in the middle range in most cities around the world. So do take a look at that, because it's one thing to measure what you do. It's quite another to be able to know whether that's good or bad for you. And what I can say again, hot off the press out of Luxembourg this week as well, is as an example, and this will carry on through the world. But at the moment in Europe, if you are a meeting planner in the European Union, as an example, or a company that runs meetings, should I say, in the European Union, by 2026, you're going to have to be able to report on the measurements from your meetings, not only in terms of carbon footprint, but also the measures that you're putting in place to reduce waste, to reduce the impact on the environment. So as I say, wherever you are in the world, expect legislation, if it's not there already, to start creeping into and influencing those companies that are running meetings. Now, even without legislation, though, we're seeing the stock markets, and we're seeing investors really putting pressure on even the largest through to the smallest companies in terms of being responsible in the meetings and conferences that you run. So I'm sure if you sit within sales, you probably had more of those sort of questions than maybe you would have seen 2 to 3 years ago, or even before then. And yes, meeting planners have every aspiration out there, but the one that sits in there that we're going to focus on today is sustainable meetings. So it's here to stay. Now, Kate talked a little bit about Green Star. Hopefully you either have it, or you're going through it, or after today, you'll be suitably encouraged to go on this journey. But I thought I'd just use this opportunity as well to share with you all something that I learned probably in the last year and thought about very differently, is that there are 2 types of certification out there. One of those certifications relates to, or rather one set of certifications relates to either the building itself. Many of you will be familiar, particularly in the US, with LEED certified. BREEAM is another one. I think that one's out in Australia, but there are others as well out there. And those certifications relate to how the building is built. Now, there's very little you can do about that when you've built a building. So again, when we focus today, we're looking at the other certifications that are out there, which is how a venue is operated. And there are ones like Green Star, Eco Label, Green Green Key, ISO 14001, etc., etc., etc. There are a number out there, and they're all really important to demonstrate the credentials that you have. And we'll talk about why Green Star is different from some of those like eco-labeling, Green Key, when we get into the criteria. So Kate, that's warmed us up, hopefully, to realise that this is an important topic, that we should really invest our time and energy into demonstrating how great we are as venues. But I'll hand over to you now. Let's have a look at what that programme is.
On mute. So let's have a little bit look back at the history of Green Star and where we are today. So Green Star actually came into effect nearly 13 years ago and has been in various forms since then. Last year, as an association, we tasked our IACC Better Tomorrow volunteer group to review Green Star, to have a look at all the tenets of code, the criteria that it involved, to see if there was anything that was missing, was there anything that perhaps now wasn't relevant, or indeed if there was anything that we needed to add to the certification. And the result of that is our new Green Star certification was launched this Monday, and some of you will need obviously to renew the existing Green Star. But in its basic form, Green Star is made up of 9 key criteria areas, which Mark will talk about a little bit more in a minute, which cover 70 tenets of code. And you basically complete the certification. It covers now also social responsibility as well as the environment. And as Mark said earlier, it's actually self-certified and it's cost-free to IACC members, completely managed by IACC. And there's 3 levels. So once you attain it, there's silver, gold, and platinum. I'll explain a little bit about more later on in the webinar, but there's 3 levels. And once you're certified, you can obviously promote that using the Green Star logo to your customers and on your websites. So what do you do to get certified? So really the first steps are to, if you haven't already, is to set up your green team. And that's a group of people that we can use to contact, promote Green Star. I'm sure most of you have green teams already and key people that would take responsibility for this. Then it would be to complete or renew the certification if you have it already. And then it's with the team, it's to identify the areas for improvement and set new goals for the certification. One thing we do say, once you've completed your certification and you're awarded Green Star, that certification actually is valid for 2 years. However, if during that time your venue makes improvements or sets new goals that could impact that result, you can certainly retake the survey and aim to move up a level. So if you're in silver, you can aim to move to gold or gold to platinum, etc. Now what I'm going to do is hand over to Mark, who's going to go through a little bit in terms of the criteria in certain areas. Thanks, Mark.
Great, thank you for teeing that up, Kate. So we're not going to go through all 70 tenants. That would be really challenging for us to cover in this length of time. But certainly what I want to do today is just introduce you to the different areas that we've got. Now, of course, education and awareness is important. Kate talked about how important it is to have an active green committee on your property, looking always at, where you are today, and think of this not as a standard, whether you meet it or don't, but just think of it as a journey. You're part of a movement of improvement, and wherever you are in terms of that journey, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is where you're heading to, so and what's next and what you can do that you're not doing currently. So having an active green committee that are representatives from all departments within the property is a really important start to that. You need to be encouraging environmental options to everyone that you're working with, your suppliers, your customers as well, so meeting professionals, because again, don't assume that our buyers out there, our meeting planners, know what a good choice is versus a bad choice in relation to the impact on the environment. You need to offer carbon footprint measurement. Many of you are doing that today, and a number of you I know have introduced this in the last 2 years. And some have made it mandatory that they offer a carbon footprint measurement. We'll talk a bit about that in a little while in more detail, but to offer it as standard as part of your proposal. So not even having to be asked for it by a meeting professional. And remember, if you provide that measurement to in your proposal to a client, if they've got that, even if they didn't ask for it, there's a really good chance that they will then go and ask the next venue they compare you against what theirs is, so that they can use it as a benchmark and a comparison. So really good to be on the front foot. And you need to have environmental and social policies in place. So that's the first area. Of course, taking a leadership position, particularly as it relates to community leaders. So this is very much a social responsibility side of things. Green building certification, we looked at some of those examples, the LEED certified, having circular, taking, you know, a real proactive stance on that waste. We saw that massive 33% figure in terms of waste, you know, but having a real policy in place where the circular economy is embraced, and whatever we're not using, we find a way of reusing that in some form. And then microplating and small vessel size, and we'll show an example of that to you as well during this session, because that's areas that we can all thrive on and really make a big difference on in relation to meeting venues and the IACC certified venues. I'll take a moment just to pause and again recommend that anyone who's got any questions, you can either keep them to the end and we'll open up the microphones and videos and you can share them, or if you've got something that you would like to place in the chat box as well, Kate and I will pick that up equally as well throughout the session. Water conservation is really big as well, as you can see, everything from water saving devices and landscaping strategies, water metering. I mean, we see excellence even in IACC locations like the desert. Quite frankly, Las Vegas have got incredible water saving devices and strategies in place, but there's a lot in there. And remember, just the ones that we're sharing here are just headlines. A number of detailed codes of conduct that are sat within the Green Star questionnaire that you'll be able to see. Now, looking at purchasing, of course, we want that to be a big part of what you do. We don't want it to be trying to make the best of the materials you've already purchased, but we want it to be a part of the purchasing decision for you. Just like we talk about that to meeting planners in relation to, you know, evaluate venues' credentials as part of your request for proposal. Don't wait until you've contracted and chosen your venue based upon all the other areas that they provide services and facilities on, because it's far more difficult. And we've heard case study after case study of meeting professionals going to the venue, going to the hotel after they've chosen that to host their meeting, and then coming up against challenges to do things that are environmentally responsible. They've made the wrong choice. They'd evaluated it against the wrong credentials. Energy management is another big one as well. So having an energy management program in place, reducing drying cycles of the dryers that you have on property, having eco-friendly building materials used for your extensions, etc. They're all ways that you can really reduce the carbon footprint. And let's just bear in mind this magic number that the United Nations has come up with of all venues and hotels being carbon neutral by the year 2020, year 2050, I beg your pardon. It's really, really important. When we look at food and beverage, there's so many things that we can do related to that, but just some examples, you know, only putting sustainable fish on the menus, less leftover food being composted, food banks being supported, local produce, reducing the food miles. And here's one example of one of IACC member venues, which was Benchmark Hospitality. They used their annual conference to research and sample and work with microplating and smaller dish sizes, so that again we're reducing the amount of food out at any one time and reducing the potential waste, because we're turning things over very quickly. So again, it's not just that we're thinking of doing these things, we're testing them out on ourselves and making them a part of our own learning experiences within our venues and with our venue teams. Now, not all good ideas as it relates to sustainability come from Sweden, but this one does, 100% from the heart of Stockholm. Many of you will be familiar with Lotta Bowman. She's been to many of the conferences, both in the US, Australia, and Europe. Lotta is owner and CEO of Sigtuna Höjden Conference Centre. She makes a point very succinctly here. Being sustainable is not boring. It can absolutely enrich the delegate experience. It can motivate every team member and give them all an incredible sense of pride. We give all of our sustainable activities, the heart and strength and presence that is in the venue day in and day out. And that's a sign of an organization that from top down through to every person who's involved, including suppliers, stakeholders, and attendees at conferences, they feel a part of this. And if anyone needs proof that it makes your staff motivated and smile, this is just one initiative that Sigtuna Höjden and Lotta and the team put in place, where they basically used a local seamstress to create all of the staff uniforms. But the reason they're all different is because they're all using recycled materials. So those could have been curtains, they could have been something else, and they've made their uniforms incredibly colourful, but also poignant, because attendees ask the staff, where's all the color coming from? And they get to tell the story of how they've all played a big part in terms of being sustainable. So if your staff would like to smile like you're seeing these wonderful Swedish hotel operators do so, then get them really involved in in your sustainable activities and proud of everything that you do. Now, it wouldn't be appropriate just to share what we're doing within venues. And if anybody needs any further proof, here is, one of the clients of the IACC members who shared, with us that not only, they're very happy to use IACC properties, not only because of the type of facilities and, the executive level audience that they bring in, but because they're aligned to provide sustainable environments for employees. So really do shout about it and make sure that it's in every part of your communication strategy. So that's just a snippet. Like I say, we've got 70 tenets that you can work your way through, and hopefully you can end up with your silver, gold, or even platinum status, which is incredibly hard to get to, but you all have it in you. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Kate. She's going to tell you in detail how you can go about attaining your Green Star certification. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Mark. So yes, to attain your certification or indeed renew your certification, you need to go to the IACC website. And then at the top of the website, go back one, Mark, sorry. At the top of the website, there's a series of tabs, and under the social responsibility tab, towards the bottom is the Green Star certification tab. And if you go into that, it brings you to the Green Star page, which contains lots of information. The top half of that page tells you about the certification itself, and the bottom you'll see all the members that have achieved the certification, and they're listed by country and level. But before we actually complete the survey, what I would suggest you all do is on that page at the very top, you can download the PDF of the actual survey. So it means you can go through all the tenets of code, go through the criterias, gather all your information with your teams, and make sure you've got everything to hand when you're ready to commit it, to go through and complete it online. And you can do that two ways. You can either click the QR code on the previous page, or you can visit the link on the website, and it will start to take you through the process. As Mark said, it's 70 tenets of code in 9 areas. Once you've completed that, at the very bottom of the survey, it will ask you to sign it off with your name and your venue details and email address. Please make sure you fill that in, because that's how I get hold of you to let you know you've achieved your certification. And as I say, once that comes through to IACC, we will then send you confirmation of you achieving your Green Star status and the level that you achieve. In that email, you'll also receive the Green Star logos, and confirmation that your venue has been listed on the website under the appropriate level. And anyone obviously renewing, that's updated according to the level that you achieve on your renewal. Once that's done, Actually, just to highlight there, so at the moment on the website, there's one page with all that information on. We're updating the website, so there'll be a page with all the information on how you go about it, and then there'll be a second page that will list the number of venues under certification and the levels. Because we're getting so many venues coming through now, we need to split that into 2 pages, which is great news, and it's great to shout about. So yeah, thanks, Mark. So just on that, have I missed anything? I don't think I've missed anything. So let me hand over to Mark. And again, if there's any questions on the process, do reach out to myself, or we'll open Q&A shortly. But Mark, that's back to you. Thanks.
Awesome. And I'd just like to add to what everything Kate said there. She made a really important point about how you promote what you've achieved. It goes way beyond just putting the IACC Green Star certification on your proposals or in a corner of your website. And I'll give you a really good example. I was at a industry event earlier this month in Melbourne, Australia, again, delivering similar education to meeting professionals. And I just thought, it's a really good example of a hotel or venue in Melbourne that, it's got excellent sustainability credentials, and could I learn about it? So quite simply, I Googled, most sustainable hotel in Melbourne. Pretty simple. We can do it all for our own cities or regions or towns. And one came up, the Hotel Alder came up. So I thought, great, I'll go and take a look at that. It was a website that was promoting specifically venues and hotels around Australia. And what was fascinating was I went to this website and there wasn't one single reference that I could find to sustainability. Not one. Wasn't a sustainability page. There wasn't any logos or endorsements or beliefs around what they were doing. There was just nothing. So either this one referring website, had misunderstood, or they changed, or they were just really bad at demonstrating through their marketing and communications plans, all the great stuff that they do. And I go so far as to say it was probably the latter, because we see this time and time again. And that leads me on to another initiative, which I'm sharing here because it's a tool for meeting professionals that IACC has created. And basically what it is, if you go to this page, again, use the QR code here, or you can find the components of a social checklist for business event proposals in the same area of Better Tomorrow that Kate indicated, but this QR code will get you straight there. And it's a Word document of all the questions that we believe you could ask a venue. Do you do this? Do you do that? As it relates to the climate, accessibility, people, vitality, all of the areas under social responsibility. And we encourage and train meeting professionals to pick the ones out of there that means something to their organization, their strategic goals, their people, their attendees, and to start putting them into their proposals, or rather their request for proposals that they're sending to the venues. Start asking the questions. Now, I'm sharing this with you, though, for a very different reason. In one of our host venues, when we first launched this, we asked them if they could go through this list and tell us how many of the 50 or 60 different standards that we put in there, how many of those they conform to, because we were just curious. And actually what we saw then was fascinating because the venue didn't have all the answers in one place. They had to go and ask, the facilities management team, the maintenance team, the housekeeping department, the restaurant, the chefs. They had to go all around the property to say, do you do this? Do you do that? Do it and bring it all together. And so, we realized at that point that actually one of the first things you should probably do is download this template with all these questions in and go to your respective heads of departments and say, could you look at the section that relates to you and tell me if you're doing it? Because we want to be able to talk about it proactively, but certainly we want to be able to answer the question when it comes through. So do use this. And it's also free for you to send out to your meeting planners, because again, if your venue is full of excellent examples of what you're doing for the environment and social responsibility, then why not put this in the hands of your buyers to say, go and ask the other venue you consider against us next time if they're doing it, because I bet you we are better, and there's nothing better than being able to boast that. I'm going to go back as we end this, and then we're going to head now into Q&A as well. But I did skip over a slide deliberately a little earlier on because, again, this is outside of our industry. But during the pandemic, we came out of the pandemic, you know, really trying to wonder how our venues are going to be reinvented. And we took advice as it related to the United Nations sustainability goals. And we asked the professor at the business school at the University of Michigan. Sorry, I'm going to send all of you dizzy here. I thought it was a bit sooner. But we asked Dr. Tim Palmer, professor of management at Western Michigan University, you know, what his view was on the importance of social responsibility, social sustainability and responsibility. And he was quite clear in this, that it might be tempting to put our resources in other areas, particularly as we're recovering from the pandemic, trying to get our finances back in order, etc. But there will be negative long-term impacts for the organization if you do bypass, if you do put things off. And the only way that you will build resilience in the future is by creating shared value with all of your stakeholders, customers, local community, staff, everybody. And, you know, and also from a perspective, and I don't want to skim over this one, your employees of the future are evaluating whether they want to work in your organization or alongside you based upon the credentials you demonstrate in this area. We remember that slide, 67% relating to their buying decisions, you know, or that will influence their buying decisions. I bet the number is equally as high when it's related to whether they feel that they can work for an organization as well. So in all elements, all stakeholders will help you in the success of your business. It will help you endure. It will help you be more resilient in the future. It's really quite important to everybody. So, Kate, we've shared a bit about Green Star. Hopefully everyone who's on the call today at least got an understanding of it. But, you know, as they embark on this journey, you're here for anyone and everyone in terms of their inquiries to help them or help them through the process, right? So just an email to you to be able to ask for any assistance. But on that note, I'll just open it up. Does anyone have any questions on either, you know, just the concept of being sustainable in the, you know, in the venue environment and the world that we live in today, or want to know anything more about the case studies, or indeed got any questions about the program itself for Kate or I? Feel free to open up your mics and your videos with any questions you might have. This is always a moment for deathly silence. So assuming that we've given everybody everything that they need, Kate, to get cracking, to get started on this, or to go back and do it again if yours is out to date. I'll maybe just take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us. Really appreciate you being on this IAC webinar. Join us for the other IAC webinars. And please do come along and join us in Basking Ridge, New Jersey for the IAC Knowledge Exchange, which is happening in just 5 weeks' time, April 18th through to 20th. Incredible venue that exercises impeccable environmental and social credentials. So live it, breathe it, get some great examples. Come join us at the Knowledge Exchange at Verizon, the Ridge Hotel in Basking Ridge in April. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. And to reiterate, if anyone has any questions that they need any follow-up, just reach out to me and I'll help you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
all. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.